Having done this, it utilizes repression against all truly natural impulses, and I'm going to say divine impulses, not because the ego is a separate thing, but because you want to believe that you are. You might say that's hard to believe. You never decided that you wanted to be separate. But the fact is that you have gotten hooked, as we've talked about many times, on the experience, the high, the hit that you get from attempting to be individually, privately creative and to make your mark on the world, or to actually create something on your own that you can take credit for entirely. You thrive on the attempt to accomplish this. And you do it because the ego suggests to you that you can. And the ego suggests to you that you can so that you will be distracted from connecting with yourself as soul. Repeating, having done this, it, the separated mind, utilizes repression against all truly natural impulses, not because the ego is a separate thing, but because you want to believe that you are. The ego is a device for maintaining this belief. But it is still only your willingness to use the device that enables it to endure. Do you see what I've been meaning when I've said that you are at this moment the Christ, pretending you aren't, behaving as though you aren't, and believing your behavior? There is no ego. The ego, repeating, is a device, a tool, a means for maintaining this belief that you can be separate. But it is still only your willingness, the willingness of the Christ that you are, to use the device that enables it to endure. And then, silly ones, you blame the ego. The ego made me do it. And all the time, you have put on the mask, behaved as though you aren't yourself, and then tried to lay responsibility for the crazy actions that you've taken on this masked figure. Who was that masked man? I don't know. We better try and find out. You see, more subterfuge. I mentioned last week that what I'm engaged in with all of you is an overture of love. And here's a little more of it. My trust in you is greater than yours in me at the moment, but it will not always be that way. Your mission is very simple. You have been chosen to live so as to demonstrate that you are not an ego. I repeat that I do not choose God's channels wrongly. Now, it could be very easy to say here that I was speaking exclusively to Helen and Bill, and that this doesn't relate to you. But I'll tell you something, anyone who is hearing my voice, whether it's right now through Paul, or whether it's in the stillness within yourself, you you are at a point of becoming undefended against your connection with the whole of being, your connection with those of the brotherhood who are not confined by ego definitions. You have arrived at a point where you're breaking the boundary and the isolation. In that sense, your intent that you have followed through on to the point of successful contact, if I may put it that way, has made it possible for me or for your guides or for the Holy Spirit to provide the invitation to you to persist further in this direction. In that sense, I have chosen each one of you who has chosen to listen. And so, your having been chosen doesn't make you special. It simply confirms where a newfound commitment lies in you. And it inevitably, that decision, that choice, inevitably puts you in the position of realizing that part of waking up involves loving your brother as yourself, behaving in a new way with your brother, seeing your brother in a new way, being willing to use your brother for the purpose of remembering the Christ in him and therefore the Christ in you. So, continuing, I repeat that I do not choose God's channels wrongly. It was really a mutual choice. You and I did it together. Continuing, the Holy One shares my trust and always approves my atonement decisions, because my will is never out of accord with his. I have told you before that I am in charge of the whole atonement. This is only because I completed my part in it as a man and can now complete it through other men. My chosen receiving and sending channels, meaning any of you who hears my voice and communes with me, cannot fail, because I will lend them my strength as long as theirs is wanting. The word channels has a somewhat bad rap these days. But what are you doing when you become defenseless against God? You let God shine through. You. We've talked about your needing to have an object of your affection, some place to extend your love to, so that you might extend the Father's love through you to the object of your affection, and thereby both of you stand in receipt of the Father's love. Doesn't that make you a channel in that sense? If you are here to represent God, if you are here because you are the expression of God, then you are channeling God. Continuing, I will go with you to the Holy One. I will go with you to the Holy One, and through my perception, he can bridge the little gap Your gratitude to each other is the only gift I want. I will bring it to God for you, knowing that to know your brother is to know God. A little knowledge is an all-encompassing thing. If you are grateful to each other, you are grateful to God for what He created. Now, don't be grateful to each other because you scratched his back and he scratched your back, and you made a good deal together. You made up a good agreement. That's not what we're talking about, gratitude. Gratitude for the Christ that your brother must be, regardless of how he's behaving, is the gratitude that will transform you and him. If you are grateful, continuing here, if you are grateful to each other, you are grateful to God for what He created. Through your gratitude, you can come to know each other. And that truly in the sense of knowing as opposed to perceiving. Through your gratitude, you can come to know each other. And one moment of real recognition makes all men your brothers, because they are all of your Father. There's an incredible learning when you find yourself feeling loved by me or loved by God. And that is that you realize that you didn't do anything to become worthy of it. You know that you didn't change in any way to suddenly stand in receipt of the conscious experience of being loved by God. And in that moment, you inescapably become aware of the fact that this same thing is true of your brother or your sister, that they are as deserving of it as you are, because you know you're not any more special than them. And in that realization, a truer sense of brotherhood comes into play, and a capacity on your part to truly be able to look beyond your definitions of them or the definitions of themselves that they present to you, and see more deeply into their worthiness. Continuing, love does not conquer all things, but it does set all things right. You might say it puts everything into perspective so that everything fits perfectly and divinely. Continuing, because you are all the kingdom of God, I can lead you back to your own creations, which you do not yet know. What has been dissociated is still there. In other words, the movement of creation that has been going on all this time, that you have been dallying with the ego and playing with the idea of being an ego and suffering from the idea of being an ego, all of the movement of creation that you've been participating in remains unchanged and awaiting your recognition and remembrance of it. And it will be returned, as I said. Continuing. In my invitation to love. As you come closer to a brother, you do approach me. And as you withdraw from him, I become distant to you. Notice I didn't say from you. I don't withdraw. But as you withdraw from him, I become distant to you, because in effect you withdraw from me. Your giant step forward was to insist on a collaborative venture. This remark was specifically made to Helen and Bill. But I want to point out to you that the moment you, any one of you, decides to abandon your isolation and you reach out to me and you make connection with me, it is because you have insisted on a collaborative venture. You have said, I want to join. I do not want to be autonomous. Continuing, this does not go against the true spirit of meditation. It is inherent in it. In other words, meditation is not an isolated experience. It is not meant to hold you in your already existing isolation, but in a finer experience of peace in your isolation. Meditation is a collaborative venture with God. See how I'm promoting our love affair here? It cannot be undertaken successfully by those who disengage themselves from the sonship or the brotherhood, because they are disengaging themselves from me. God will come to you, and I've said this over and over, and it's the key point, and it's the simplicity of it. God will come to you only as you will give him to your brothers. Only as you are willing to have an object of your affection. And let that object of your affection not be the bastard who's confronting you, but the Christ that you know has to underlie that definition he is applying to himself. God will come to you only as you will give him to your brothers. Learn first of them. In other words, let your brothers, pleasant or nasty, kind or mean, aggressive or passive, be the one whom you choose to extend the acknowledgement of Christhood to. Let them be the trigger for your refusing to respond from your ego, and rather respond from that place of having turned toward the altar, having joined with me or with the Father, so that you might extend a purer, more acceptable love that arises out of a sense of who the one you're extending to is divinely. Learn first of them, and you will be ready to hear God as you hear them. In other words, don't go running off to God and leave your brother out in the boonies and say, I'll come back with you when I've got a clearer perception. It's a little bit too hard for me to deal with you right now. It will be easier for me to deal with God, and I'm going to do that by myself. So I'll be back when I make the connection. You see, you start with your brother. Let your brother be the reason you turn toward God. but not as a means of leaving your brother, but rather as a means of coming into clarity, divine clarity within yourself, so that your brother will be worth your attention and your commitment, and so that you will reflect back to your brother or your sister the divine truth you know about the Christ that they are, in whatever manner it takes to cause them to feel safe enough to abandon the definition that they've given themselves and the effort they are confident they have to put forth to protect themselves in your presence. Repeating, learn first of them, and you will be ready to hear God as you hear them. That is because the function of love is one. Now, I'm asking you this question. You could ask me this question. How can you teach someone the value of something he has deliberately thrown away? And if your ego is really rearing its head, it would say, why would you bother to teach someone the value of something he has deliberately thrown away? Well, how do you teach someone the value of something he's deliberately thrown away? He must have thrown it away because he did not value it. You can only show him how miserable he is without it, without the thing he threw away, and bring it near very slowly. You don't cram it down his throat. You don't shove it in his face. You can only show him how miserable he is without it, meaning the correct perception that he's thrown away, and bring it near very slowly, so he can learn how his misery lessens as he approaches it. If you don't approach slowly, you will frighten him, and his fear will not lessen. Continuing, this conditions him to associate his misery with its absence, and to associate the opposite of misery with its presence. It gradually becomes desirable as he changes his mind about its worth. You see, this is my love affair with you. Continuing, I am conditioning you to associate misery with the ego and joy with the soul, with a capital S. You have conditioned yourselves the other way around. A far greater reward, however, will break through any conditioning if it is repeatedly offered whenever the old habit pattern is broken. You are still free to choose, but can you really want the rewards of the ego in the presence of the rewards of God? Well, of course, the answer is no. But just as I am willing to persist with you for as long as it takes, you are invited to persist with each other for as long as it takes. Why? Because somewhere along the line you will arrive at a point where you have more faith in your brother than your brother has in you. Just as I have more faith in you than you have in me. Because I have more faith in you, because I know who you are, the Christ, my brother, my sister. because I have more faith in you, because I know who you are, than you have faith in me, I persist in the face of your mistrust of me and your fear of abandoning the control that keeps you bound, even though you think it keeps you safe. And so I persist with you. And as that begins to be obvious to you and make sense to you, you will begin to feel, not think, but you will begin to feel that this is your function as well with your brother. And you will be able to feel the fact that no matter how much resistance you run into, and no matter how much delay they introduce into the process of their waking up, they're worth persisting with. Because they deserve to know who they already divinely are. They deserve not the opportunity to refine themselves and become something that they aren't already, you see. They deserve to experience what they already are and think they're not, believe they're not, and are committed to believing they're not. And even though you are not feeling who you truly are fully, your commitment to helping them be less afraid of experiencing who they are truly will confirm to you the safety of your persisting. And both of you will be blessed. And that's the way it works. So I continue in my love affair with you, and I invite you all to consider having a love affair with your fellow man. A love affair in which you bring to your fellow man an acknowledgement of his Christhood, and bless him with that acknowledgement by neglecting to respond to his ego assertions from your ego habits. I love companioning with you.